What's good, my fellow comrades? Today, I thought I'll take a break from Kenya and just describe political leanings as a whole. Most people don't seem to understand what it means to be left-wing or to be right-wing. People think that these are political parties when they're more so ideologies, and people don't see the difference. I was in a forum the other day and someone said, I'm not left-wing because these politics, they're created to divide people. And I'm like, you've missed the understanding of what it means to be left-wing or right-wing. It's not subscribing to a party. It's more so subscribing to a way of thinking. Like Christian or Muslim is a way of thinking, and most people, they don't see that. So in this video, I'm going to describe and show you the differences of what it means to be left-wing versus being right-wing. The terms left and right arose during the revolution against feudalism, particularly in the French Revolution of 1789. People on the left wanted to keep moving, keep changing things, while those on the right were conservatives or reactionaries wanting to stop moving or go back to the old society. When the words of left and right are used in this way, Marxists, Leninists stand on the left because they're part of left wing. Among Marxist Leninists, however, the terms left with quotation marks and right both mean something bad. Left deviations should be corrected or they will become left opportunism, and the same holds true for right deviations and right opportunism. The use of left and right as a scientific basis, it reflects objective contradictions and our plans or actions. In a social situation, conditions are ripe for some change. It will not happen unless people support what is new in the situation against the old or dying. For example, the United States, a monopoly capitalist society, is ripe for socialism, but the US will not go socialist until the working class makes a revolution. A right deviation favors, however, keeping the old. All monopoly capitalists are on the right with regard to this question of the best socialist system for the United States. They want an opportunity to keep capitalism forever. Right opportunities help capitalists hold back the revolution. Reading this article is so true. Elon Musk just became the first person in the world to become a trillionaire. And you see people celebrate this like someone has 1 trillion for himself, and people are celebrating it like it's an achievement to be proud of. This article I was reading, it's from 1979. Back then, the person who wrote the article said the truth. The US is not ready for socialism. And that was over 47 years ago. That's 47 years ago. And 47 years later, the US is still not ready. But now when we look at a place like Kenya, with Kenya's history, it's the same. Kenya is not ready for this because people still think that things to do with money, like material things, are the goal and are the standard and should be the standard. So when you tell someone, hey, let's not celebrate Elon Musk's trillionaire status, someone looks at you and calls you, oh, look at this hater for saying someone shouldn't have a trillion. And it's like, no, I'm not saying we should say he's a bum or say he's a useless. I'm saying no one should ever reach to that level of wealth in any country, anywhere around the world, especially when there's problems in that country. Like the US suffers from a lot of problems. And here in Kenya too, people are celebrating trillionaires. What will a trillionaire do, especially here in Kenya? Country sucks. It's dog shit. We're seeing steps by the current administration to destroy the middle class. So if we have a two-tiered society like feudalism, what does someone having $1 billion or $1 trillion do for you when you're the one without anything? You don't have any dignity, you don't have any respect, and someone is out there living their life, laughing to the bank with $1 trillion or even $1 billion. It's just so crazy. And there was someone who said from the time Jesus was alive, that's 2026 years ago, if you are earning something like $2,500 a day till today, you'd still not hit Elon Musk's level of wealth or even other billionaires that are alive today. I'm just saying. So now let me get into the differences between left versus right. Right-wing politics and left-wing politics are two warring ideologies with different outlooks and applications. Right-wing politics is centered around beliefs that certain social orders and hierarchies are inevitable and natural, with this belief being supported by a natural law or tradition. Left-wing politics supports social equality, often in opposition to social hierarchy or any other form of class division. Left-wing politics are more progressive in its approach, while right-wing politics are much more conservative. Left-wing economic policies involve reducing income inequality, increasing taxes for the wealthy, and government spending on social programs and infrastructure, while the right's economic policies involve lowering taxes and less regulations on businesses by the government. Those belonging to the left spectrum politics always believe that society benefits from an expanded role for the government. Right-wing ideologies believe that the best outcome for society is delivered when individual rights and civil liberties paramount with limited government involvement. Left-wing politics is characterized by an emphasis on equality, fraternity, progress, and reform. Right-wing politics are characterized by ideas of authority, hierarchy, tradition, and nationalism. Left-wing nationalism is based on equality, popular sovereignty, and national determination. It associates itself closely with national liberation movements. Right-wing nationalism is influenced by romantic nationalism, where the state derives its legitimacy from the culture it governs, including language, race, and custom born within this culture. Left-wing politics is traditionally against religious institutions and believe that state and religion must be separate from each other, which is secularism. Right-wing politics have always found supporters who believe that religion should play an expanded role in society. Populist ideas in the left wing do not include horizontal exclusion and will rely more on egalitarian ideals, meaning you want the betterment for everyone or for the most amount of people. That's what egalitarianism is. Populism is a recurring theme in the right-wing political circles. Populism is a political approach that appeals to ordinary people who feel that their rights are being ignored. The term left-wing has a similar origin during the French Revolution, where anti-monarchy revolutionaries were seated on the left side of the hall. The term right-wing has its origins during the days of the French Revolution 1789 to 1799, where the supporters of the monarchy were seated on the right hall of the National Assembly. Let me tell you what it means to be left-wing, for those people who still don't understand what it means to be left-wing. Left-wing people don't like landlords. Left-wing people don't like the fact that people are working 5 days a week they don't enjoy just for the luxury of not being unhoused and to acquire money to spend on their hobbies. Left-wing people wonder why basic commodities such as housing, food, medicine, and education have become so unattainable. Left-wing people join the dots and realize that the value of their labor to the company is significantly more than the wages that they're paid. Left-wing people wish we had much more reliable, cheaper, convenient public services. Left-wing people don't believe billionaires will exist, and that's a fact. Left-wing people wonder how it can be possibly ethical for companies to pay hundreds of thousands in dividends to their shareholders, but only pay their workforce a minimum wage. And here in Africa, they don't even pay you a minimum wage because there is no minimum wage, so you can work overtime for nothing.
Liberal. Happy fun, la la la. Human smuggling, fentanyl deaths, forced government euthanasia.
What does it mean to be liberal? When picturing the political spectrum, liberals often fall into the center. Sometimes they veer slightly to the left or to the right, but by all accounts, they are the very definition of we want change, but not so much change that it affects my personal quality of life. They are interested in altering the status quo rather than challenging or replacing it. In general, liberals support capitalism with certain degrees of regulation or caveats imposed in an attempt to make it fairer. They do not wish to dismantle the oppressive system, but rather tamper with them to benefit more. They are likely to hold themselves on a bizarre, it won't ever happen to me pedestal. They are your friend who insists they don't need to be in a union. Socially, liberals tend to engage positively with feminism, although you'll find many of toughs and swaffs. I'm not going to describe that, especially for a Kenyan audience. There are also a fair number of Marxist toughs and homophobes. These are people who view both wealth, and gender through a materialistic lens and considered sex-based oppression purely to be a socially imposed and therefore not internal struggle. This political area is where you'll find white feminism running rampant. The t-shirts where someone says, girls do it better, go boss girl. There's no meaningful engagement with feminism beyond the surface ideas. One example is the movie Barbie. This video had planned for it to be 1 minute, but too much reading, too much focusing on the details. I'm just like that. I don't know why. I just can't help myself. I can't describe something in 1 minute. And for this to be a short, but basically, a liberal person is someone who believes in voting, who believes you can change the system by voting the right man in. And there's also this neoliberal ideals. Yeah, I'm not going to describe what neoliberalism is, but as I said it in my previous videos, it's Reaganomics. And whole Reagan idea, why it's more so letting the market decide what it wants to do. Unplanned economy, unchecked economy, letting it grow into whatever it wants to be. And here in Kenya, how can I translate that into Kenya? Because I'm looking at this from a Western lens, very Western. Because the problems they face is not the same problems that we face. Because I'm looking at this from their social views and their economic views. Whereas here in Africa, especially in Kenya, because I can see stuff firsthand in Kenya. How can I translate what I've read in that 10 minutes to what I see here is a big problem. People think we need to make the economy better, we need to make it bigger, but we don't. We already have money. If you check the GDP of our country is on, this says it'll be 200 billion, but last year it was 150 billion, so we have money. So if you're just doing 20% of that, 20% of 150 billion, that means that 30 billion is what the government has to spend. Not rich, but it's doable money. 30 billion a year to spend is very good for any government, and that's 30 billion max. I'm saying between 15 and 30 billion is the government's budget, I'm guessing from GDP. We don't need better economics. We need fairer economics. Rather than politics being the only way you can become a millionaire or billionaire in this country, or being friends with a politician, we need a fairer way in economics. So I'm not going to tell you, oh, let's invest into this or let's invest into that. Making the economy much more open so that regardless of where you're from in the country, you can make an amount of money that you're comfortable with. Comfortable. Not hoarding everything for yourself, because the world has finite resources. We cannot have an infinite amount of money, everyone, when there's a finite amount of resources. When it comes to the social terms, we are very, very backward. Oh my days, fuck. This country is so backward when it comes to social stuff. And yes, people are saying, oh, we're waking up, but it's too slow for my liking. But I think if we have more people in a fairer economic system, benefiting from a fairer economic system, then the social outlook on life will be much more positive. So if you come and tell them about this woke, dangerous ideas, they'll be more likely to listen because their life is good, their life is decent. Because if you look at it as an example, in Nairobi, in Kilimani, Milimani, those areas, Westlands, those rich areas, those posh areas, the place for the Barbies, they have a much more woke view of life. But now imagine, instead of it just being Westlands and those places, we can spread their wealth much more equally instead of hoarding it. What will that do? We see with economic liberation and economic elevation, people's social views tend to progress. It's just how it is. Instead of people going to church and saying hallelujah, hallelujah, going to the mosque and saying whatever they say in a mosque, if economics spread out equally and everyone was equally comfortable, most are telling them about these social ways to interact with women, other tribes, other ethnicities, and people who are different to them, they're much more likely to listen. So especially here in Africa and Kenya, economic liberation will lead to some form of social liberation, but it won't be that easy because you still have to put in the work for social liberation. You can't just free the economy and expect all the socialists to follow. No, you still have to do the work to educate the masses on getting away from their man-walk ways. Yeah, that's the outlook. And especially in the Western countries, they don't have this view of what to do with an economy. Because, for example, US is worth 33 trillion or 35 trillion. That would GDP that much. That means the government 20%. That means the government can spend like 6 trillion. 6 trillion. They don't have to discuss economics, and that's why the difference between a Western socialist or a Western left-wing person and an Eastern left-wing person, they say the Western ones are focusing more so on social liberation, whereas the Eastern leftists are focusing more so on the economic revolution. And it's like, yeah, if you compare the West is up there when it comes to finances as compared to the East. So for those people I see criticize, oh, Western people, you guys are woke, you guys only care about gay stuff. And it's like, that's because the economy is already there. The economy has made it. They're worthless. They have trillions to spend. For us, we have to liberate the economy, then educate socially, and that's how shit changes. In America, all they have to do is have a social revolution. In the East, all we need is our economic revolution that will lead to social revolution. So even with the Marxists saying that, oh, all we have to do is make life more fairer, let's bring communism, I don't think that will be enough, because you still have to educate the masses on what to do and what not to do socially. So yeah, that's my takes. I'm yapping. This video is gonna be long. I have so much to edit, but yeah, peace.